Hello, creative folks. I'm here to give you a little walkthrough of what a motion graphics artist has to go through in order to get an Illustrator file to be ready to animate in After Effects. So I haven't actually done this yet, so I'm just winging it. Hopefully it'll be a good example of what has to be done. So we have right here I've got my Illustrator app open and my After Effects app open. So I'm going to open up the file for this AARP ad. And as of right now, I'm looking at the last art card. But if I zoom out, you can see I have all these different art boards, which each one of these represents a different board on the storyboard. So first of all, when I look at this, my biggest problem is all of this art, every single one of these vectors on every single one of these boards exists within one layer. So let's begin by seeing what it's going to look like if I just simply import this into After Effects. So I'll go to AARP, this one, here, here, here. There's my asset. So if I click open, I have a single graphic right there. Now if I put this into a timeline, let me show you what I'm talking about. If I put this down here into a timeline, it is one object. One object that is the size of one artboard, and I can't, there's nothing else to do here. This is just a flat image. The reason why it's a flat image is because all of this artwork exists on one layer. Even though there's all this artwork in here, if there's only one layer, I have one object in After Effects. Also, I can only access one artboard. In this case, this one is artboard number 1, so it's just pulling in the first artboard. One thing you can do in After Effects is when you import an Illustrator file, this doesn't always work out, but you can right-click on it and create shapes from the vector layer. It's going to take some work because there's a lot of shapes in this layer. But that did pull all my shapes out. Problem is, none of them have the proper kind of fills. So it worked for a second, but not really the way you would want it to. Okay, so obviously I can't use this file in After Effects yet, so I'm going to go back over to Illustrator and show you what we need to do. Let's consider this first artboard for a second and think about what we want to do. We want the steering wheel to turn, probably. Maybe the needles on this might rotate. The car's probably not going to, the dashboard's probably going to act as all as one object. We probably want some parallax to be in these mountains, so these are all grouped together right now, but this mountain is going to need to be separated from this mountain and this hill and everything. Also, we're going to want these white lines to be going past the camera, so we're going to need to animate those, and this sign definitely needs to be an object because it's going to be coming closer. Depending on what I want to do with these hands are already pretty nice because we've got one path for the forearm and one path for the hand itself, so we could break that up and allow, as the steering wheel rotates, we can allow the hands the wrist to bend as they keep their hand at 10 and 2, so or is that 9 and 3? All right, so let's first of all, what I need to do is in After Effects, when I import an Illustrator file, the Illustrator art is going to import at the size of the artboard itself. Anything outside the artboard is going to be cut off. So I'm going to select everything in artboard 1, copy it, and then I'm going to hit Command N to make a new file. This is 1920 by 1080, and if the designer for this followed convention, the artboards in this entire document would have been 1920 by 1080 for HD. So if I paste this in here, that tells me right there that that art is in fact big enough for a 1920 by 1080. Here's the reason why you want to design your artwork for 1920 by 1080. The reason is because if I'm going to do a reverse of what usually happens. If I pasted this in here, this artwork would have been small if it was created on a smaller artboard. The problem is if you're using strokes in your artwork, see this stroke has been outlined, so that's why that's scaled correctly. But if this were designed in a smaller frame and looks the way you want it to, and I bring this into my new artboard and I have to scale it up in order to make it fit my screen size, then what happens is my image will scale up, but the strokes do not scale up with the image, and then we would have thinner strokes than what you designed. And so I'd have to try and compensate for that by either changing the stroke size or the stroke weight here, or bringing the vector into After Effects as a smaller file and then doing all the scaling in there, because After Effects with Illustrator files, you can increase the size of them and then it'll re-rasterize it, so we can continually scale up Illustrator files in After Effects without pixelating them. So that is nice. I'm going to undo that back to my original size. Now, like I said before, this artboard is 1920 by 1080, but the art itself is actually going outside the artboard. So I need to change the size of this artboard. Whoops. And this is fine that I'm doing this, changing the size of this artboard. It's just so that when I import this into After Effects, it will get all my art. So we still have a problem here. We have all these different objects that we need to animate, but they're still on one layer. So we need to start breaking these out into layers. This sign is one grouping. So depending on what we're planning on doing with this sign, we may want to have the sign be an object. We probably want to have the text be an object, and we probably want each of these posts to be an object, depending on how we're going to transition the signs from one sign to another. Like if we're going to morph it, then maybe these two legs need to come together to form the one as the sign flips around or changes shape and color and turns into the diamond shape. But I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. So just to be safe, I'm going to break it all up. Problem is these are all grouped together, which is good for designing. You kind of have to group them together so that you can just grab them all and move them around as one object. But I'm going to hit Command-Shift-G to break this up, and then hopefully, yeah, there's one, there's another one. Sometimes what you can do in Illustrator is when you have a selection made, like this group of vectors, you can go over to your layer panel and release to layers, sequence or build. I can't remember. I always get confused. But it'll break all of these. Oh, actually, it did it to the whole layer, it looks like. It broke up every single path, closed path, into its own object. But the problem with that in this situation is if I drag all of these layers outside layer 1, I end up with probably more objects than I need. Actually, that sign's still one big object because they're grouped. Don't need all of this stuff to be isolated. This hand is isolated, but all these other objects, I don't need them to be their own layers necessarily. So I'm going to do a couple of undos. Grab the sign, and I'm going to hit Command-Option-L to make a new layer and call this one sign. And put that on that layer. And then I'll do this for every individual thing that I want to be its own layer. Here's one really cool thing about translating text into After Effects. This is one reason why I'm always bugging you guys for fonts. It's because I would prefer you not give me outlined text. If in case we want to animate this by character, it's much better to have it be a text layer in After Effects. Cool thing about After Effects is you can create a text layer and just paste directly into After Effects. This is one of the reasons why you really want your artboards in After Effects to be based on your 1920 by 1080 pixel dimension, is because however big this text is metrically, if it's the correct size in a 1920 by 1080 artboard in Illustrator, it will come out that exact same size in After Effects. Let me show you what I mean. So if I go over to this next one, independence in this one is much bigger. So if I go over to After Effects, create another, see, same font, same point size, everything. So that's a really nice translation. So if at all possible, unless we've got like font licensing issues or something like that, definitely give me the text. So that's good that this is all text still. It gives me a lot of freedom. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back here. Hand. We've got a couple of layers here. What I'm probably going to end up doing is, what's another thing that's beneficial to me is, even though this is all the image that we're going to see, as soon as I start animating this hand and he starts needing to, or she, this person needs to start bringing their hand up and around, we've got to cut off forearm. So another thing is the steering wheel. I can't ever let the bottom of this image get too close if that steering wheel is going to be turning. It would have been much better to give me the entire steering wheel. More arm off to the end here, because it made it look really good for the storyboard. However, as soon as I start to move this animation, I'm missing artwork. So I could always zoom into this, but I can never get a wider view of this dashboard than what I currently have. So one thing I always say is build your artboard so that it's here, but build your art so that it's out to here. And then as long as your interest is 1920 by 1080, we can expand this artboard out and get all the art that we would need in order to do more animation. Because right now I can only go in, but I can never go out. All right, let's get back to making some layers. Let's call this one right hand, and then make another new one and call it right forearm. And then let's break these up, Command Shift G, put right forearm there, right hand there, bring that layer down to the bottom. Now I need to Alt drag these over here, go to Edit. Can't remember the key command for this. Object, transform, reflect on the vertical. Okay, now I can replace this hand and I have this vector. Now I just need to remember that I need to edit this artboard again, make sure my artboard is including all of my art. All right, so now I need to put left hand and left forearm. In theory, I actually could just bring this into After Effects and duplicate the layers in After Effects, but yeah, I'm just going to do this. All right, left hand. And left forearm. Whoops, I dragged that on the wrong layer. All right, left hand, right hand, forearm, forearm. Might want to group these so that when they import into After Effects, this is the stacking order that'll show up in After Effects also. So I would prefer to have my left hands together and my right hand layers together. Steering wheel. So I'm going to make another new layer. Just call it wheel. And then all of my road looks like it's one layer. I'm going to show you another thing in just a minute. So I'm going to make a new layer, call it road. This looks like it could be part of the road layer. So let's see. Oh no, it's underneath the road. I don't know why that object's there. Maybe at one point it was supposed to be right here, perhaps. Then let's stack that on the bottom of that layer. Alright, cool. That's looking good. Let's hide the road layer for a minute. Just call this ground. Okay. Call this, put the text on the why do you drove. Trying to do this with a microphone sitting right in front of my hands. That's why it probably looks a little awkward. Alright, turn the road back on. Alright, let's check out this whole dashboard here. What I will probably do with this dashboard is hide all these other layers. I've got sky. Let's put that down here. I have this leftover cut off hand layer, but I duplicated that. One thing I might want to do, ungroup this, make a needle. And I can, like I say, these two objects are the same, this needle and this needle, so I only really need to make one version of it. Trying to go pretty fast because I want to get on to making this road. Needle. Needle 2. Alright, let's turn those off. Turn the sky off. We've got some hills, but now that I've got the car, I can select all these. I'm just going to name this layer car. That way it'll be all alone. Alright, ungroup all the hills. And I don't know how close we're going to get to these, but just to be safe, let's make a bunch of hill layers. Hill front left. Hill front right. Hill back right. Hill middle left, just so I can try to keep track of these hills. And then hill back left. Alright, so let's turn all these on, see how it looks. Okay, that road definitely needs to go behind the car, and the ground needs to go behind the road, and these hills all need to go back behind the ground. Excellent. How different does that look from the original art? Text needs to go in front of the sign. So I bet you can't guess where I'm going with this. Each one of these boards, the background is the same. So once I get this background, actually these hills look like this same hills just slid down to the bottom. I've already got a color for the sky, which I can make in After Effects, so that's good. So for the rest of these boards, I could do one more board with just the different signs, and then I can get these, if I'm really trying to cut some corners, I can just grab the vectors from these signs and paste them into After Effects. I'll show you in just a second how I do that. So I'm going to make the road I'm not going to break out every sign for you, but I do want to show you how I import multi-layered Illustrator file into After Effects, and then how I can copy some vectors into After Effects directly without actually importing an Illustrator file. So let's save this as an Illustrator file, asset, graphics, Illustrator, and call this benefits board 01. Save it. Click OK. Go over to After Effects. Import. I'm going to do this. Now, with the multiple layers, look at my options. It doesn't just import as one flat object. It gives me the option of importing it as one flat object. But if I import it as a composition with these layer sizes, I can open that composition, and each one of these layers is now an object that I can animate. So let me show you real quick how this wrist will work. Tie the right hand to there, forearm. So now the forearm, if I move the anchor point of it down here, I can move it with the hand and everything, but then also I can move the wrist slightly. So I may want to, now that this is done, there is a possibility that I might want to go and round that off a little bit. But you can see that each one of these is an object. And now I can go in, make my composition the 1920 by 1080, and it looks like the artboard. Pretty schlick. All right, so because I'm going to need the road lines to animate, this perspective may just be way off, and I might just have to do something crafty. But if you were designing a road for me in Illustrator, this is actually something that, now that I have this art, I would do directly in After Effects. But since I'm demonstrating things here, what I really need is a road that is a rectangle like that, only in the road color. And then I need some lines. Only I need those lines to be white. And none of these to have strokes. Alright, cool. Take this here, here. Wait. This here. Do it again and again. Alright, cool. So now what I would do is take these lines and this road and animate them in After Effects. But I need to have them separated. So I'm going to make a new layer, call it Road Lines. Make this new layer, call it Road. And because we're going to be animating this vertically, I might want to just have this be vertical, but I need to change my artboard size to include all the art. Alright, so I'm going to save that as a road. Go over to After Effects, import it. Composition, layer size. Open this up, and then I can turn this into an animation. Oh, I forgot to put those on separate layers. Classic mistake. These are road lines. Road. Yeah. Okay. Line, 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 line. There. There. Save. Those aren't centered on there, but that's okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and center those right now. lined up. All right. So let's just do some real quick animating here. I'm going to animate that down like that. Oh, okay. I know what I'm doing now. Just have to figure out sometimes what I want. Okay. All right. E N B. Okay. Sorry that took so long. All right, here we go. Going back to the benefits of driving. What I would really want to do here is pre-comp this road. So I'm going to make a little road. Rename this road art. And then make a new comp and call this road. Then make this a 3D layer. Turn it this way, away from the camera. Make a new camera. Make it a wide angle one because that's a pretty extreme angle we're seeing on there. Okay, so I'm just working on making this road happen a little bit more. I'm going to do a little trickery here. Let's extend this over this way. Now we got a road that's driving along. Do. All right. So I might need to do a little bit of corner pin to this. Make this work a little bit better. Just to make it look a little bit closer to the artwork. Way more perspective. All right, now let's go chuck this into Benefits Board 1. See how it looks. Road. Put it right there. Oh, I got way more perspective on that than I needed. Okay. It's okay. We just do this. Ooh, I got it so close. Oops, Sorry, everybody. All right. I figure probably as long as this is pretty close, we're going to be all right. That's pretty close. Might just need to rotate this a little bit. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, whoops. Got myself all excited there. Okay, here we go. All right. Good times, everyone. Here are the good times. Vroom, driving down the road. Okay. So now we can go in and I can take the hills and I can do more parallax stuff to them. Move the hands around on the wheel. Turn the steering wheel. All right. Okay. Next, let me show you real quick, just in concept, this whole sign thing. These shapes are really good for this, actually. So if I ungroup this sign, ungroup this further, grab our people, copy that, I can go into After Effects directly and paste them, sort of. There they are. So this wasn't the perfect example, but at least you can see that this can be done. There they are. Aren't they cute? Now we could probably be able to do some animation of these masks. Unfortunately, I am limited to the fact that I don't have a complete arm. It's not. I don't have closed paths for the arms or the. I could animate these legs a little bit. Could animate her legs a little bit, but definitely, if I want to make these two characters walk, I need to draw forearms, arms, bodies, legs, lower legs. Otherwise, that's not going to move very well. But there they are. I can at the very least just take some mask expansion and, you know, fade them in. All right. So what else did I say I was going to do? I got a little sidetracked. I had to take a phone call, but let's see. I think that's it. So each of these signs, they might be a little bit tough to do total morphs from one sign into another because we've got a gradient here, and then we've got this outline, then we've got the red, and then the white, and then this one would need to go to yellow to a black line, to more yellow. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is more often than not, I'll just be like swapping them out, maybe flipping them around, especially on the yellow to yellow. These two can just have that flip around in 3D and just flip from one side to the other. You can also do that with a shape like this. Just flip it around so that it looks like you're switching to the back side. Animate this a little bit. Yeah. So hopefully that helps you. I'm gonna have to now go in, and if I was really under a time crunch, I would probably just go in, save this, grab this, save it as a layer on a new artboard, and then just stack all the signs in one more Illustrator file on all their own separate layers, so that they each come in as one object. But remember, if I want to be able to get the sign posts in all the way, I need to change the artboards so that the artboards will include those posts. So I hope that being able to see how this can be broken up using layers. So think about layers as your objects in After Effects and not each path. Because in Illustrator, this is a nice, lovely object. Even though if you really expand this down, you're looking at several paths within there. And then further down still, like there's all these different paths that make up this one sign. And even though in Illustrator you could select each one of these individually, in After Effects, this entire thing is one object. One object that won't even include half this artwork. Or not even half. 1/17. All right. Signing out. Hope you enjoyed.